Yes. Today, our guest needs no introduction. She is Kasturi Chellaraja Wilson. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure being here today.
Kasturi Chellaraja Wilson is a newly appointed Group CEO of Hema's Holdings and the first female CEO of a public quoted conglomerate in Sri Lanka. Congratulations on your new role.
Thank you so much.
How does it feel to be a female powerhouse?
It's humbling to be seen as that. It's also putting a lot of pressure on me to make sure that I pave the way for other women to actually succeed. So, given this position, setting a benchmark, which I didn't look at it as honestly as that. But it's honor I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the challenge. But most importantly, I'm looking forward to how I can take Hema's, which has been my homeland for the last 18 years, forward.
You have an amazing story, and I understand you come from humble beginnings, which makes your story even more appealing. Tell us about your childhood.
Yeah, I think people have heard that story, but what I mean by humble is we were not even upper middle class. We were a family of 4, and childhood was simple pleasures of playing bata to outdoors. We didn't own a TV, so I don't think till the longest of times till I left school and was working, we didn't own a TV. And doing simple chores. I have a lot of good memories about school purely because I spent a lot of time outdoors in the sports field, and with success there, you kind of remember the good times of it. And we kind of grew up wanting not too many things. Lessons learned there is, I guess, my parents, my mom especially pushed us to do things we loved. Education had to be focused. And focus and enjoy the simple things. They didn't make us feel that we had things inadequate.
Okay.
So I remember while others would have had new clothes all the time, I had my sister's recycled clothes as well as she would go to Vatex, and those days it was cooperative material, Hugo or Vatex. She would stitch clothes for us and stuff. So it was, even though it's simple and humble big, family life we had, we had I didn't want for more. It was simple and I enjoyed it. I must say that I enjoyed it mostly because I was living outside more than inside the house.
Right.
Yeah.
Are there any defining lessons that your parents or close family taught you that make you who you are today?
So most of the lessons I draw down from my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And she had, so because of the types of, my mom was a single breadwinner most of our lives.
Right.
My dad used to stay at home, and he would be either partly looking after us in terms of the domestic front. But the lessons I learned from her is when the need arises, a woman has to step up. And remember, that was so many years ago, right? And that time culturally, women-led houses were not seen. But I saw it. Right. And her lesson was, you have to get a qualification. Whatever you do, hold on to a qualification, because when the need arises, you could step up and be independent, if the need arises. So it was not pushed to me in the sense of you have to have your career. It was you have to have a qualification to make sure that you could stand on your own feet, if the need arises. Second thing is, because of the background, we didn't have excessive money.
Right.
But she taught us never to borrow, never to live beyond our means, and that held us in good stead. Especially none of us, if you don't, I mean, I've gone through my life, I've gone through times I had money, I didn't have money, but when you don't have money, you readjust. And that's a lesson I learned from her. Do not borrow, do not ever be in debt to people. And third one is, she was not, if she needed, it was her singular purpose was to educate me and my sister. So she did what it took. And the same thing, when you realize when you have a purpose in the center, you do what it takes.
Yeah.
And for my dad, one thing about him, I still hold, he's one person who never judged anybody, or who, if you talk bad about somebody, he'll say, look, let them be. Everybody has pluses and minuses. That was his famous quote, and I guess I learned a lot from him on that.
So I understand you got married at 23, you had 2 kids by 26, and by 29 your life took a twist and you became a single mom. And this would have pushed you to pursue your career. Am I right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
So how did you balance being a working mom and raising 2 kids? How did you do it?
So the secret is to live with imbalance.
Right.
So I actually didn't balance it, but I was happy with the imbalance I had. The imbalance varied from days, moments, but the choice was made by me. So some days I would have been excessively focusing on my kids. That's a choice I made, and that made me happy. And that means the imbalance would have been, I would have been spending less time at work. But there are certain days I do choose work over kids, and that's a choice to make. So the secret is accepting you're not going to balance it, and
Okay.
there's no balance. You learn to be happy with the imbalance, but the imbalance, the momentum would change, where you shift your priority based on your gut feel. Some days as a mom, your kids need you more. So that's how I did it.
So what's your advice to all working moms out there?
Look, you can't do it on your own. They say it takes a village to bring up a kid.
Yeah.
So I had my little village around me, stemming from my parents to my domestics to my friends, and that's on the personal front. On the corporate front, I had a big village here.
Sure.
Even at Aramex, I remember my boss, who was an Arab, would support and say, just go out there and pick your kids if you have to, and there was no choice, no two words about it. But at Hemaz, I had a network which supported, starting from the board, the directors, and and my colleagues, and even people who work for me. So even my driver, everybody played a part in making sure that the places I couldn't be at certain times, they kind of stepped in. So it's just that you reach out. But the thing is, we shouldn't feel that we are lesser of a parent or a corporate woman when you reach out to people for help. My whole life I've reached out. I've grown because people have helped me in different moments, and the secret is that for working moms, reach out, have the conversation. Don't be ashamed to have that conversation. So when I walked into my job at Hemaz, I said, I'm a mom. I'm a single mom.
Right.
So there are days my kids would need me, but I'm very good at my job. So
Okay.
once you lay that out there,
Sure.
you're not asking them for favors. I've told them. It's laid out my space. So I guess that's it. So own your space and just ask for help when you need it.
So as a woman who has shattered the glass ceiling, if I may use the cliche term, how would you set precedents for all women going forward?
Okay, so I'd say I will avoid using the word shattered.
Yes.
It's just that I've been the first woman who is holding a post which has been traditionally held by a man. Right? So we have broken, what I've broken or is the conscious or unconscious biases that a female cannot be a CEO of a conglomerate maybe, or that a female who was fit to be a CEO of a conglomerate hadn't appeared up to now, maybe something like that. So that precedent has been set. So there shouldn't be a question that a female can't sit in this position going forward,
Absolutely.
whether it's this conglomerate or any other conglomerate. So that that bias has been kind of put aside. Second thing is, I think what I've really done is that's purely because I had bosses who had faith in me and they pushed me to do roles
Sure.
which were non-traditional female role. I mean,
Yes.
non-traditional.
Yes.
That's because if I've always drawn down, not just because I work for Hemas, but that's the truth.
Yeah.
It's just that they never looked at roles in terms of that's a role for a woman or that's
Yes.
a role for a man.
Yes.
It was looked at in terms of, look, this is the role, I want this business to go there, to a certain place.
Right.
What kind of a profile should sit here, and who has this skill set.
Mm.
So when they gave me transportation, my boss Suzanne turned around and said, Kasturi, we think you can do it. And I'm like, I'm never run a business. What do you think? How do you think I'm going to do it? And they saw my skills and they had faith in me. So I think breaking that part of it is that if you have the competency, the seat should be gender neutral,
Of course.
neutral. There shouldn't be a face or a shape or a size or a gender to a leader or a
Yeah.
profile.
Yeah.
It should be based on competency. That kind of notion has been shattered.
Yes.
So those are the two things I look at. So I think, young girls, they're looking out, they sometimes say, can a woman do that? So that conversation shouldn't be happening going forward,
Yes.
because
It's on your expertise, it's on your knowledge, it's on
Yeah.
your merit.
but for that the ecosystem should be there, I must say, because at Imas we don't have that. We don't have this bias about it's a woman's role or a man's role. It's the conversation about who is the best person for it.
Of course.
So I think now organizations also should move out and start creating an environment to have the conversation about the capabilities versus anything else.
Absolutely. So you must have had good mentors, coaches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think this thing about mentors and coaches, does it mean that you're not good enough for that role, or does it show some kind of inadequacy in your part? But the truth is that every person has to grow.
Sure.
You don't automatically fit into a future role. And the second aspect is you are kind of blind to your areas of development or how others perceive. So my mentors, I've early on in my career reached out to mentors when I was setting up shared services purely to understand how people did it. Before that, I reached out to Ronnie Peters, I remember at that time, and throughout he has I've lent on him in the financial side of it. But when the group prepared me for my first change in 2010, there was a coach on board, and he still remains on and off my coach. And that journey actually, it enriched me more. So
Yes.
the thing is, the coach doesn't tell anything to you,
No.
what you don't know. The coach actually supports you to go dwell inside, take inputs from from people around, and actually understand yourself better and your skills better. So it's important you do that. It's important in life that you start taking a bit of insight about yourself, deciding what you need to be aware of and what you need to change or not change. It so happens that I love the person I am, but there are certain personality traits of myself which people kind of might not find it very appealing. For example, I can be very straight and direct.
Yes.
And everybody is not ready to accept feedback that way. So I have to be quite aware of whom I'm talking to.
Well, you are self-aware, which is the first step.
Yes, so that journey came on with my coach, I must be honest.
Okay.
And he actually taught me the skill of and the importance of being self-aware.
Yeah.
It doesn't only help me in corporate work, in my personal life it helps me a lot.
Okay, so as a female leader, and you've been placed in logistics, in pharma, predominantly male, isn't it? How did you cope?
So I think I go back to my childhood where my parents had only 2 daughters and I was a tomboy. So I guess in my mind I was climbing trees and doing things where girls traditionally didn't do. So I was never a person to back down from something just because I was a girl.
Okay.
So that was never the question whether it was a male bastion or not. But the doubts I had was that I hadn't led teams.
Okay.
I hadn't been a CEO before. So those were the doubts. Did I have the skills to lead teams where the people were older than me? Did I have the skill to actually learn that industry versus being a male? So I didn't. So I went into it thinking, look, it's okay, a woman can do it.
Yeah.
And the beauty is the people around me and the industry people really accepted and kind of really supported me. So in one context, I think maritime and logistics, the senior stalwarts were ever willing to teach me the nuts and bolts.
That's great.
And if I was willing to learn,
Yeah.
so be it. And I remember in industry meetings, they would like take extra time to explain what the industry was about and to learn it. So I didn't feel that. Honestly, I didn't feel it. But I must, yeah.
So you'd walk into a boardroom with this beautiful sari and to a boardroom full of gentlemen, and they will help you. Because traditionally, in the 80s, that's how the jacket came about, right? Women wanted to be like men. They wanted to sound like men. They wanted to look like men. And here you are in this beautiful sari, and you've gone up the ladder with your authentic self,
Yeah.
which is truly amazing.
Which is interesting. I must say that question is the first time somebody has actually posed this question in that context. I've had this question posed to me as, okay, you look nice in a sari versus the traditional role of a person, how the person should wear their attire, what they wear. So honestly, the boardrooms, remember, historically have been male dominated, and there's a look and feel. So you have the black suited guys
Yes.
in the boardroom, and I remember when I was young, the audit reports had the gentlemen in black suits and the white shirts seated there. So when I walked in with the sari, I would get comments about the sari, and I never took offense because I actually looked at it from their side of it. It's unusual, and they were really trying to be nice and make me feel comfortable.
Sure.
As long as you just let it fly and take the compliment on the face of it, you're okay. Beyond that, then it's up to you to prove that you're adding value and them respecting you for that. However, I've had a lot of people saying, why don't you wear a suit for a meeting? And the reason I actually wear sari, which I tell them, and why people ask, I'm so comfortable with the sari, and that's not related to your question, but I thought it might be important, is because two things. Firstly is, when I was very young, I was an audit manager at Selfawareness, and when I used to go for my client meetings, my boss would say, Kasturi, please don't wear a skirt and blouse, you look like a kid, nobody's going to take notice of you. And I started wearing sari. And then I realized sari is so much more economical than a suit.
Right.
You collect so many, and I don't spend the fancy amount on a suit, I spend a very small amount on a sari. The second most important thing, even though it's a commercially very viable thing, I was very comfortable in sari. So whatever somebody wears, it's what you're comfortable in and what you feel good in, because your confidence is also built around it.
Very.
Put me in a suit, I'll be so like a fish out of water, and I will lose my confidence. So it's simple as that. So it would work for somebody else.
Yes.
For me, this was my comfort space.
Fantastic. How do you motivate yourself, and how do you stay motivated?
So that question at this stage of my life, when I answer it, so on work, I love waking up in the morning and knowing I have a challenge and I need to accomplish something, right? So in that context, as long as I have something to drive and do at work, it keeps me going. So you're motivated to get up and go to work. It's interesting. But a lot of my motivation comes from the personal side as well. Because as a human being, I think I love seeing other people, being able to help, impacting other people in a positive way. I love being able to watch people grow. And how do I do that? So, and the older you get, your personal values and your company values actually kind of have to have some alignment. Otherwise, a person like me, I wouldn't be working at that organization. I might look for another organization. But what motivates me is, in that personal side, is I look at my kids and my family, and my mom and my kids are the ones who I kind of who are with me or dependent on me, and they're healthy and I'm healthy and I have a job and we have a roof, and I count our blessings, because there are people out there who struggle with people who are suffering, and they have other issues of their health, their meal, and for that part of it, I am lucky that I work at Hemas, because we, while they have developed me also, we have a thing which we don't talk about is we try to impact the community where there is a national need.
Okay.
So we've done it, and I've been a trustee through that. So the fact that I have a vehicle to actually impact the causes I like. So there's a thing called Piyavara, there's a program we do, early childhood education. That's purely to give access of education to any child from 3 to 5 years. And that's making sure no child is left behind. And what we've done badly is we've not talked about it. But for me, the ability that I have, that I'm enabled, I have the ability to work in that area is important. And then things like differently able children. Like, I remember there is a school in Hamatot I walked in, and we have 40-odd children who are mostly by children of single moms.
Right.
And we built a school for them, but these children will never have the same life somebody else would have.
Yes.
How do you make their lives better? How do you give those moms a place to see how to handle these children and give these children a better chance, an opportunity to integrate into society? So that's the Ayanthi part of it. But those are things we've done. For me, is how can Hemas actually be there, and how can I be in a position of influence to be able to solve the national issues or support the country in making these families happier. So
you've got a great
tough.
platform.
I do, but you know, it's tough. You have to. The problem when you want to do impactful things is you can't change the world. So like, I'm sure loads of people feel sorry. During COVID, you saw people without food.
Yes.
But how can you solve everything? So you do the little things you can.
One step at a time.
And that gives you more happiness and motivation than anything else in life. So for me, the job is there, but the job also gives me a chance and a platform to do things which is meaningful for me.
A change agent.
Yeah. Impact agent, I guess.
An impact agent. All right. Okay. So, what's one of the toughest decisions that you've had to make, and how did it impact your life?
Toughest decisions. Actually, one decision was not too tough, but I did it. That is when I walked into university and I walked out in one day. But it impacted my life. But I dwelled on that decision a lot, because that meant I had to go home and tell my mother. That was the only promise I gave my mother. I'll get a qualification.
Okay.
While playing my basketball and all for Sri Lanka. And I walked into uni, and because my sister, there's a history, my sister went into uni and got ragged badly, and she actually gave up because she couldn't handle it emotionally. So when I saw that, I was not going to, with all my bravado and all the basketball, I was not going to go through this dragging process.
Right.
So I walked into uni and somebody called me, and I just didn't go towards the person, I walked back.
You walked back.
So it was a very easy decision for me. It was a spontaneous decision. I don't think I thought about it, but
Yeah.
it impacted me a lot.
Yeah.
And to be honest, the only tough decision I've had is when I walked out of my marriage. It was tough not because of me. It was tough because nobody gets married and have kids to leave the kids with only one parent or in single parenting. But
Yeah.
whether I was doing it right by my kids, that honestly, and culturally, I know I had to face culturally that you're going to be a single mom and okay, she's a divorcee, these labels on society. But more importantly, my kids had to go through that in school. If my child, I remember my child was pulled up because my kids they were naughty, and any child is naturally naughty. But it was like he's naughty because he's from a family, a broken family and things. So those are tough decisions. That was the only tough decision I think I put myself through, because I was not sure whether I was being right by my kids.
All right. So failures are the pillars of success, they say. Are there instances where you have failed, fallen, and then picked yourself up?
Many. I think it's more instance of failure than success.
Okay, give us 2, perhaps. And what did you learn from it, and how would you prevent the reoccurrence of it?
Okay, on the sports field, I won't talk about it, but I think when you play for Sri Lanka and you're playing at Asian Games and you're one of the smaller built countries, except for Singapore, whom we beat, and we come close to beating, I think, India, China, Japan, it's kind of a one-horse race. So how do you fail, and how do you walk in knowing you're going to lose, but how do you keep yourself motivated enough to give your best game and face the next team, you know? That's a sportsman thing. But in life, in business, I'll tell you, I've failed many a times. But since we've been encouraged to learn from your mistakes, you kind of get up and do things differently and not to be the same mistake twice. But there's one failure is it had a monetary cost to the companies when Hussein, when he put me into transportation sector, and he told me, right, you go and develop your entrepreneurial spirit.
Okay.
And which I didn't even know I had an entrepreneurial spirit. And I said, okay. And remember, it's a corporate, right? So you are judged on returns and the money. And he said, okay, you have this pool of funds I'm giving you. Go play around.
Oh, wow, nice.
So, and that's a maximum you can have a mistake on. So I played around with about 3 projects, 2 of which I can see have done very well, and the logistics is one of those. Of course, I lost money. And I went and played around buying boats. What did I know about boats? I did that.
Okay.
And that cost the company. And I'm trying to think that just because I was having success, repeated success, going into industry I didn't know, trying to play in an ecosystem I didn't know.
Right.
It was a lesson I learned there. And and personally, I guess the hard lesson I keep learning is not being too savvy about trusting people too much, and not being savvy about the political ecosystem around me. I guess I burnt my fingers up quite a bit, but I've learned from it. The trick was whether for me not to get too jaded and bitter and change myself,
Yes.
but to be more aware about the environment. Yeah, personally I think that would be the thing.
In your view, what are 3 success factors in leadership?
Okay, so the first thing I think, so leadership or the leader doesn't have a profile or a stereotypical profile. So a leader should be able to be authentic, and as a leader you should know what you're bringing to the table. So I might not bring the same skill as another leader.
Right.
Same time, my skills might be needed for a certain period in a company, and someone leader might be needed for something else. But knowing what your strengths are as a leader, what you bring to the table, and owning that and being authentic about it. The second one would be that you should be, as a leader, I think I take joy in building the whole ecosystem and teams. So development of people, being able to get people who are smarter than me, watching them grow and taking the company forward is something a leader should be. It's not about the leader, it's about what you can create for the people around you. Third thing as a leader is it's a huge responsibility.
Yes.
It's a big responsibility in terms of your people and the talent around you. Like somebody was a coach to me and saw the potential in me. As a leader should create that culture that people can grow and develop and rise up if they're competent enough. So it's more like being a coach versus a dictator. I guess that's my style and that's my view of it.
Yes, that's right. More coaching than being authoritative.
Yes.
Okay. So what's your message out there to all the young people joining corporates and all the women out there who want to climb the corporate ladder and not be stuck in a broken rung? You know, the ladder tends to be broken at some point and they don't seem to be going up. So what's your message out there for
So
them?
firstly, I'll break it into 2. I think for the young people there, don't go in with too much a preconceived notion of what is the ideal role for you and what you want. It may be, you might be very clear what you want. Also try to figure out what you're good at. And just go out there and explore a bit. Don't think there is a role which is not good for you or not relevant for you because you know it's not for a woman maybe. But for the young, whether it's youth, whether it's boys or girls, I think push yourself to be better than what you were yesterday, and just go out for opportunities. There's nothing wrong in trying things out there, because I accidentally tried a lot of things and I was pushed into things.
Right.
And it kind of worked. Second thing is I get your point of this thing of women getting stuck.
Yeah.
It is by choice maybe,
Perhaps.
or it's the ecosystem. So I guess when you choose corporates, and I think the corporates also have to now be a bit aware of, we need to have an environment. As a country, we need the best talent to be in economic activity.
Yes.
We are not going to come out of it if not. 52% of our population are women.
Yes.
So there has to be more women coming in. Otherwise, it's not the talent who is in the workforce. And within that, I guess when you choose a company, you also have to have the conversation or push the company to make sure that environment for you all to survive and to navigate that ecosystem, it's there. So I guess corporates will change now, because it is on us also to create that. So for my luck, I was at Hemans, which just allowed me to be myself and be my harsh, not so nice self in some moments.
Yes.
But I still survived, and there was no bias. But I guess that's it. But the second thing is, if you voluntarily take a break, you need to have that conversation to see how you can come back in.
Yes.
Because it's your choice at that time, but it's not for you to take a permanent break maybe. How do you come back in and plug in? So again, it's a conversation with the company and you. So for every problem, as long as you have a conversation, I think the expectations are set, and they know exactly where you want to come in and how to solve it. If you don't know the problems, you can't solve it. So that ecosystem again is very relevant. So we focus on talent, whether it's man or woman, to make sure we understand what their issues are. Because our leaders' problem is you have to retain talent.
Yes.
You can't have a cookie cutter solution. So you need to understand exactly what that person is going through, and come up with a solution how you can sort it out.
What people's issues are and resolve it for them. Personal issues as well. All right. Thank you so much for all your time. Truly inspirational story. Beautiful woman in a beautiful sari. Stay fit, stay healthy, and keep shattering more glass ceilings and inspiring everyone out there. Thank you so much.